Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heitz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davison. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go!
A very sorrow day today in Steelers Nation as the Pittsburgh Steelers got manhandled in Houston 30-6. Nathan, what were your thoughts going through the game?
Yeah.
Because
Before,
I want to say that. Yeah, what were your thoughts before? How did how did your feelings change throughout the game?
Before I answer that, I'm going to say that I'm not going to rant because everybody on Twitter and I think all of us fans yesterday, everybody did it for me. So I'm not going to really say anything in the sense of getting PO'd or anything like that. I'm going to stay relaxed about it. Answer your question, Daniel. I was pretty confident going into the game that I thought it was going to be a very similar game to what we saw Sunday night. That the defense was going to play well. The defense was going to get to CJ Stroud. That our offense still wasn't really going to look in the sense of anything different from Sunday, but still be able to do a little bit. And it wasn't even close to happening. And as the game went on, as the Texans really drove down the field their first drive, they shot themselves in the foot a few times. And then there was a terrible PI call on Minka. And then they scored. After that, I was like, okay, going to stay relaxed about it. But this isn't really quite ideal to give up a drive like that. And then as the offense kind of did its thing, and then the defense came out again, and Texans were just moving the ball really well. And it started to get out of hand where it was 13-0, 10-0, 13-0. It was, I think we all just had a feeling it was going to be another typical Steelers game where we all expect them to win and they blow the gasket. And it was at a point I turned it off. I just put Red Zone on. I turned it off. I
was at the game.
More. Yeah, and I feel sorry for you, dude. I really do.
Was at the game and
I'd be pissed.
Oh, we were. It was very disappointing. You know, it was crazy because there was like a lot of black and gold right everywhere you look around. And then about third, fourth quarter, I just see like red taking over. I don't know if some of those guys were like fair weather fans and had like a Texan shirt underneath or something, but we got outnumbered all of a sudden.
Yep, we did.
Is crazy. But you know, when it came to this game, it was just poor coaching, poor execution, poor everything. You know, the team was just not prepared. The Pittsburgh Steelers went in there, I think maybe feeling themselves a little bit too much after the performance on Sunday night. I don't know. Maybe they underestimated the Texans. I don't understand why. I don't think they're playing good enough football to underestimate anybody. You know what I'm saying? And so,
absolutely.
You know, they come in and defensively, from where I was sitting at, we're sitting in the end zone and we're pretty high up in the first level. So it was like a pretty good, decent view. I could see the plays developing. The unfortunate thing was I was calling whether the Steelers were going to run or pass, and I was pretty accurate on that for the first like 4 drives. My brother was laughing at it because like I said, the first one was like, you know, they ran pretty good last week towards the end. I bet you it's a play action pass. And boom, first things first. And then, you know, it wasn't so much that it was predictable, but I guess it was to a certain extent. But defensively, when, you know, that first drive came out, that Houston Texans offensive line looked like a Pro Bowl offensive line out there. They were opening up holes that, you know, I could run through. And it was insane. Like, I don't understand What's going on in the middle of the defensive line where they're just getting pushed off the line so easily?
Yeah.
Where do you think the weak link is
On defense?
on the defensive line?
Oh, on the defensive line. I think the weak link is more when you look at like I like what Keanu Benton's done in terms of stepping in and getting more production and stuff, like, or getting more opportunities, and I think we've seen more good out of that than we had versus what we haven't. But to me, like, guys like Ogunjobi, Liao, like they were non-existent. I don't think that they're getting I don't think they're getting off blocks enough. And there's just not, and I know Cam's not there, and if he was, it probably would help ease things a little bit more for guys like that. But the defensive line as a whole, and even when you look at just some guys behind our starters there and stuff like that, to me, when I look, it just looks like our edge rushers, and that's really about it. That's really what it looks like, because our defensive line, to me, it looks still. They're not getting off the blocks. They're not even in terms of guys running the ball. They're not there, and it's making things a little more difficult for our back end. And you can't just have TJ Highsmith just be really the two that you're relying on. You got to get some more pressure up front there, because CJ Stroud's having all day. You could go watch a movie. You could come back. Nobody's doing anything. It doesn't matter. So I think our line, in terms of before this game, I thought was doing okay without Cam. There were some good things being shown there. Yesterday was just a complete disaster, especially against a depleted Texans offensive line. But they're not creating enough where they're getting the quarterback uncomfortable, and they're not creating enough disruption. I'm not really seeing anybody getting their hands up too much. And like I said, when you're not able to get off your blocks and be able to stop who's ever running the ball, or if it's a little halfback slip screen like we saw a couple times with Dameon Pierce, it's dead game. It's honestly dead game at that point. So I think in terms of the defensive line, it was definitely a poor execution from them. But my biggest concern, Daniel, is our secondary. We have given up a 300 yards passing each game, I'm pretty sure. Haven't we?
Pretty much. I think we've given up a receiver that's gone over 100 yards in almost every game as well. You know, the 2 touchdowns from the Houston Texans receiver, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I think those were on. I think those were on Levi Wallace.
Yeah.
Our secondary is slow. It definitely is. And
it's slow.
The problem is, like, I know a lot of folks say, hey, you know, throw in Joey Porter Jr. Let's see what he has. You know, put him out there, have him out there with Patrick Pearson. What I've noticed is when I see him go into the game, he's replacing Patrick Pearson, and Pat P is either moving into the slot or into the safety position. And it's only happening during dime. All of Joey Porter's snaps come in dime. So he's a package specific player. So he's not in during the base or even nickel. It's just in dime, I think, is where all his snaps come in. And since the Houston Texans weren't playing dime so much because of their ability to run the ball, he only had like 10 snaps on the defense, which is way more than half. I think he had like 21 or 27 last week. And so, you know, he didn't get an opportunity, but when he was out there, I mean, he's got some crazy numbers. And I think that passers at his direction are like 39%, or they have a QBR of 39 or something like that. It's good. I just think that if they put him out there, I don't know if he's going to take Levi Wallace's position, because I think that he plays Peterson's side. So,
well, yeah, it's something I think they got to consider in the sense of being able to get him more in base, in a base, in this, even in just certain man-to-man situations. Porter can at least, the thing I've seen with him, the thing that he was really good in college was disrupting guys right off the bat.
Mhm.
And we know that he's not really been somebody to be like make the sexy plays or anything. But this team at this point, they don't even freaking need it, man. These guys are just getting burned left and right by these wide receivers. And like you said, there's a lack of speed there. Patrick Peterson, we know the thing with him was we had no idea how he was going to be at age 33. He did some good things in Minnesota in certain ways. He had some bad. This year, it's really hard to point out really any positives from him. Levi Wallace, we know, has been torched every other game, and he was so last year. And I feel like that's just that's really kind of who he's been his whole career. Has kind of been like a decent corner. He's not somebody that's going to take you over the top or anything. But at least with Porter, if you can find some different ways, because his snap count was like way down compared to where they had him at as each game kept going. So at least Porter can give you some type of dynamic. Like even at that point, like he's not like a speedster guy on the outside, but he's somebody at least that can cause some type of disruption with wide receivers that might be able to hurt some timing with quarterbacks. I think that you would see a little bit of a difference right away. Porter would still have his problems, but if you can work him more outside of just what you're putting him in, I think anybody would take it at this point. Another guy I've said too is freaking Desmond King, dude. I don't understand. Desmond King has been on the team for 4 weeks now, and he has not gotten any opportunity as a slot cornerback. The guy is honestly a really solid player. When he was with the Chargers, when he was with the Texans the last 2 years, he would still be on their team if they weren't cutting salary. He's honestly a pretty solid cornerback that can play a little bit of zone coverage. A lot better than what we're going to have with a Shannon Sullivan, a lot better than what we're going to have at Pat Pete at slot. I don't understand. And maybe with where at this point where the defense has kind of had 2 bad games now on the dock, maybe it's something that they consider. Maybe it's something that they'll finally do. I really don't know. But that was really the big thing, Daniel, coming into the season. The secondary was a big question.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see it now.
We're starting to see the answer, and it's not a good one. You know, with Joey Porter Jr., what he has, he has top end speed. He doesn't have the short end speed, but he definitely does have some top end speed, some makeup speed, and he has recovery length, meaning that guy he's freaking long arms. He's tall, slender, so you know he can break up passes from because of his length. That he doesn't, need to necessarily, it makes up for his lack of speed if it's there. From what I've seen, on tape and in stadium, him is he appears to be the fastest cornerback that the Steelers have,
Probably,
but
yeah,
that's not saying much given the other cornerbacks in the room. And for sure, when it comes to Desmond King, I don't think he's logged a defensive snap, but every one of his snaps have been on special teams.
Yep.
So that's a huge question mark. But, stopping the run was something that the Pittsburgh Steelers wanted to do going into this season. And it seems like they have completely just failed at that. If it wasn't for like Nick Chubb's leg, going out at that moment, I mean, how many yards was he, destined to have, and how many touchdowns was he going to have? It would have been horrible, and the Steelers would be 1-3 right now, you know. And so this team is just defensively, it's not where it's at. Do you think that the Steelers made a mistake in letting go Brian Flores and keeping Terrell Austin?
Probably. The thing with Terrell Austin, he's always been a good. He's always done fairly well at it in terms of his track record, more so at just being able to coach up DBs. And we saw that last year, not just because they led them in interceptions, but there were some guys like that just overall had individual success. And Terrell Austin throughout his tenure coached a lot of defensive backs. Even with Cincinnati, when he was there, he was their defensive backs coach for quite a while. He's done some good things, but the thing is, just because somebody does a good job at a certain position coaching doesn't mean they should be elevated to handling the whole entire operation. Brian Flores, on the other hand, has been a guy that has done that. And even though in Minnesota he doesn't have a lot to work with, that probably should have been the move ultimately. Terrell Austin, I never really had a lot of faith in terms of them promoting him. And sometimes guys just need to stick in their own lane. And I think with him, it seems like he just needs to stick in his own lane. It's just strictly working with our safeties and our cornerbacks, because operating the whole machine on defense, especially for as much as you're paying on it and as much expectations as there is, you get a whole new group of linebackers this year. You add a few guys. It's not cutting out. It's not like they'll be top in the sacks again. I mean, they always are. But other than that, you got to be able to do more than that. You got to be able to disrupt your quarterback. You got to be able to make your quarterback uncomfortable, disrupt timing. You got to be able to stop guys running all over you. Linebackers have to be able to make some plays, be able to make tackles that they weren't making yesterday, for example. But this is what the Steelers do, dude. They don't go out of their comfort zone. They like to just kind of keep things within their own system. And sometimes it works to an extent, but the NFL has changed. The way teams run offense has changed. And you have to kind of follow suit. I'm not saying you have to do that with everything, but there's certain times you have to follow suit with the way the league's going. And just bringing up a Terrell Austin when there were some other guys out there that probably would have been a better option, especially with guys that have ran or have been a part of running defenses in this league. Probably, I think more as you can look at it now, would have been the best move to go. And they easily could have did that, but they like to stick in their own bubble, and it's hurting them. It's hurting them. And that's what sucks. And I think that's really the big thing that frustrates fans a lot is, and I'm not speaking for myself, I think I could speak this on you, on everybody in the chat, is that the Steelers have to, you look at these teams in the league that have moved on from guys, players, coaches, things like that. The Steelers are just stuck in such a loyalty mode. And I think a lot of it has to do with Art Rooney and the way that how his dad was, and the way how their whole foundation has been as an organization, is loyalty, is letting things play out, is sticking with guys. And you see the NFL, especially as you see some of these teams that have grown over the last 2-3 years, they've made changes. They've seen the way the league has changed on offense, on defense, and they've made some, I'm sure, hard decisions, but they've done different things, and it's starting to pay off. The Eagles have gone through, like, you look at the Eagles, Super Bowl coach Doug Peterson did a really good job with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was his guy. He did not want Jalen Hurts. The Eagles were struggling, right? They clean house. And they stick with Jalen Hurts. They bring in a new offensive coordinator, and now they have Ben Johnson there as their other guy left, and or left to go coach the Colts. And they're still having consistency, but the thing is, they're going out of their element. With the Steelers, they're just stuck in their own little bubble. Probably Art Rooney for the most part, and it's not working. It's not changing with the times, and it gets to a point you have to do that.
No, I agree. I mean, there's been a lot of question when it comes to like coaching staff, and you bring up Art Rooney and why, for instance, if we look back throughout the years, Randy Fichtner was a offensive coordinator for too long. He should have been cut. He shouldn't maybe have even ever been an offensive coordinator. Todd Haley, he had his issues with Big Ben, and in the end, the team sided with Ben. Even though I thought that the offense was playing well, throughout the time period, and when Todd Haley left, for whatever reason, they felt that whether it's chemistry or relationship with the quarterback, they felt that it was time to go. But those toxicities were there for a few years. It wasn't just that season. Oh, and they allowed him to go through his contract and go. So for me, I don't know if that's a Coach Tomlin thing or if that's a Art Rooney thing. I think probably more towards the latter. Given being like, I've podcasts like football and with Ben Roethlisberger. He mentioned that his last season, that Kevin Colbert, Mike Tomlin weren't necessarily wanting him back, but that it was his relationship with Art Rooney and Art Rooney basically saying he's going to finish his contract out, forcing their hand. Right. And that's for a player, right? That's for a player on a team. That's not, you're undermining your head coach and your general manager for a player on the team. I mean, that sounds like crap to me. I mean, that sounds like bull crap. And maybe perhaps, and I've seen it in the comment section. I've seen it in other places that, maybe the Rooneys are a little too cheap. They don't want to two offensive coordinators for the same year, because if he fire one right now, paying him to sit at home or if he finds another team, I'm not sure how those contracts work. But, I think that there's a possibility there. And, the biggest talk is, well, where's Matt Canada? Now, I think that Matt Canada doesn't – I don't plays are bad per se. I think that he calls them in the wrong time, and he's a little bit repetitive and very much predictable. So, for instance, on the first play, I think it was on one of the first plays, it was the play action pass where Kenny Pickett rolled out and got sacked right away. Up until this game, or throughout this game as well, if the Steelers were under center, it was either a play action pass boot, one way or the other, or a handoff. There was never a drop back or any of those type of things. So what defenses were doing is they were attacking. As soon as they saw somebody go under center, they knew that the quarterback was going to have his back against the defense for a certain point, or he was going to hand it off. So they were attacking the middle, going through the middle, and it was creating pressure. And one, you're either going to hit the running back or the quarterback or both. You know what I'm saying? Like how we do it to, how the Steelers do it at Baltimore and Lamar Jackson. You want to treat him like a running back and all this other stuff, doing those fake handoffs, and you'll see one linebacker hit the running back, one linebacker go for the quarterback. It's kind of that type of situation, and that's because of the predictability. Now, even though they're predictable, that shouldn't stop the team from being successful. I mean, at a certain point, that's what you want. Like I was in stadium, everybody knew when the Texans were going to run. Nobody could stop it.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So,
for sure.
Yeah,
there's bad predictability and there's good predictability.
Right. And so for me, I'm just saying that there is play calls and some repetitiveness and some predictability, but there's also some bad execution. I saw on the field some horrible play from, the line, the receivers at time, and the quarterback. There was just the receivers. It was just like one of them was doing something wrong every other play. Like either the line messed up on one play, the next play the receiver wasn't looking the right way or whatever, and then the third play the quarterback ran into a sack. So it was always one thing after another, and they just not clicking together. But from being out there, it seemed like the offensive line did somewhat all right. It seemed like Kenny ran into some stuff. It seemed like the interior line was having problems again. Broderick Jones had a couple of issues early on, but I felt that he got better throughout the game. Chiefs Core 4, I think, probably did the best, which isn't saying much. And so Mason Cole was not being consistent again, and Herbig, I really didn't notice him, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, right? And Sam Malo, same thing. I didn't notice him as well, but I think that PFF had him rated pretty high, so take that for what it's worth.
Yeah,
but there's just some times where this team's not. They're just not. I don't know if they've lost faith, and maybe that's what it is. They've lost faith in the system.
Could be.
But like I watched the quarterback doing the warm-ups, right? I was watching all three of them, and where I was sitting was in the end zone, and I was in row FF, so I was up there about maybe 30 rows or so, and it was a pretty good view. And during the warm-ups or whatever, the quarterbacks came to our part of the end zone, and I was watching them throw the ball. And the notice was that Mason and Mitch were, when they would, do the snap, they'd go back, they kind of hop up, and then throw the ball. And Kenny Pickett did it. It was just kind of like nonchalant and just kind of like whatever, right? And what I noticed, though, is Kenny Pickett was throwing it behind most 70% of the time. It was like right here in the back shoulder. And I don't know what that's about. The other two guys, it was like the opposite. It was like 70, 80% of the time it was right in front of where the receiver needed it to be. So I don't know what's going on, if there's, a mental thing going on, because it didn't seem like he was in it. And, that's kind of the way he played as well. And then he was running for his life at the first sign of red. He was running out of the pocket. And that's what eventually got himself hurt. It wasn't actually, Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones had he had good coverage, or his blocking was good on that play. It's just, I think Sayamalu lost. I don't know. It looked like somebody in the middle kind of lost a little bit, but they recovered. I couldn't tell if it was Sayamalu or Mason, but one of those two guys did that. And then, that brief loss or whatever, Kenny turned around and just booked it, ran right into the edge guy. And so I do want to say this, though. In the second half, I don't know about when it was in the second half. I'm part of a Steel Curtain Network, y'all. So I put it on the Slack thing. It's like a little chat. I want to say somewhere in the late of the third quarter, I noticed that, I believe it was Mike Sullivan. He's the quarterback's coach. It looked like he had a play call sheet in his hand, or card, and it appeared that he was calling the plays. Now, I know that they were showing clips of Canada in the broadcast a couple of times, and somebody told me that in the second half, it didn't appear like he was doing anything, just kind of sitting there. So I think they may have alleviated play calling from him already.
Well, them showing him, it's not like the broadcast is going to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the play calling, in terms of that topic, I don't think we'll fully know how much detail there is into that. Maybe there was certain times throughout that the second half. Maybe that's possible. Maybe it was since they communicate back and forth, maybe it was more both of them in the sense of trying to agree on something. But it's hard for me to believe that he during the middle of a game being fully stripped like that. But maybe it was something of they're like, all right, Sullivan, need a little bit of input on this. Need a little, what are you seeing? Different things like that. And maybe they had him and Matt kind of communicate, and Sullivan was talking about stuff, and then they were kind of going with it. It's just with how the Steelers are, man. It's hard for me to see them just do that, like Matt not having any involvement in the second half. But we all know overall it's a freaking mess at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think when so many times, how many times can it be, whether it's Matt Canada talking, whether if it's any podcast, any fans, how many times does it have to be, well, our offense has to execute, the players have to execute, but it's the same results every single week. It's the same offense every single week. It's the same problems. It's the same, you're scoring, you're averaging 12 points a game. It's at the point that the main guy overseeing it takes the fall. It has to be.
Yeah.
And the fact too that there's one guy on Twitter that each week he's breaking down what Matt Canada does. Warren Sapp, I think's his name. And he does a really good breakdown. He's his own guy. He doesn't work for any type of company. He doesn't have any type of agenda behind him. He's his own guy. And he just shows, there's one thing I retweeted about it, but he's showing how easy it is to know what he's calling, how easy it is for defenses to see in terms where players are lined up at. Literally that one play, that Kenny Pickett interception, same exact thing they did on Sunday night. They just flipped the side. Same exact thing. Even Steven Nelson talked about that. He's like, we saw where Calvin Austin was up. We knew they were going to do the same thing. So then they just bring another safety over the middle.
To be fair, that ball was underthrown. If that ball is thrown correctly, I don't know if he's housing it. I think Steven Nelson's going to grab him right there, but that should have been a catch. He had to slow down.
It wasn't a good pass, but the fact that they had both guys there, they knew what was coming. And Calvin Austin isn't. It's hard for me to believe that he was. I even looked back at it. A guy who's 5'9" like that, it's hard for me to believe that he's going to make that play when you have two guys right there. I don't think it would have been caught. I really don't. But pass was bad, but nonetheless, they knew what was coming, and they had both their guys there. And even if it was Mahomes throwing that pass, I don't think the success rate would have been high.
Right, but I mean, when you have a special talent like Kevin Austin does, and the speed that he has, you're going to take that over a Steven Nelson. You're not going to think that he's going to be able to catch up to it, and he shouldn't have. Calvin Austin had them both by a few. And from my point of view, from aspect, when I saw it live, if I felt like the ball hung a little bit, and that's what it felt like. Man, if the ball would have came down faster, or would have gotten there quicker, I think that would have been a really big gain, if not a TD. Yeah, and when I watched it on the condensed replay version from the side angle, you could see that Calvin Austin had to slow down. And it was, had Ken been able to put it out there, regardless if the other team knew it was coming, you got to have faith that your 4-3-2, wide receiver is going to be able to beat Steven Nelson, a guy that you're familiar with, and his cornerback that's covering him as well. So, I get it. It's the outcome very much outweighs the whether that play worked or not, or could have worked, or should have worked. But at the end of the day, if that throw is there, I think that's a touchdown. And as simple as it may be, or whatever the case may be, I think that there's some accountability on the quarterback situation as well. Mm-hmm. He's not been playing great. His accuracy's been off. He's been leaving clean pockets. Like, those things aren't coordinator equations. That's a player situation. Yeah. And so, my thing is, let's just say the Steelers get away from Matt Canada, whether it's, in season or next. Do you give Kenny another year if we get the same type of performance for the rest of this season? And if we're getting the same type of performance, we're going to probably be in the top 10.
Yeah. Well, what I'll say about that is you're right on the Kenny stuff. He has happy feet. He likes to try to move when he doesn't need to, and he puts himself in bad situations trying to escape pockets that he doesn't need to. And whether if that's something where he's scared, if it's something of where he doesn't trust his line, I don't know. I don't know where he's at mentally. I'm not going to sit here and make assumptions and what he's thinking about and how he's feeling. I'm really not. And you're right too. Other than the Raiders game, he is missed guys. He hasn't been reading the field well. Like you said, he struggles reading zone coverage. Those are issues as well. The good thing for him is that those are things that can be overcome. Those are things that can be worked on. But the question is, how long is that going to take? Right.
Yeah.
For that to happen. To answer your question, if they move on from Matt Canada, it's ultimately the same kind of play. There's really nothing in year 2 for Kenny that makes you say, okay, yep, we're going to stick with him, and we're going to get him some new offense, blah, blah, blah. If it's just the same that it's going to be, whether they move off Canada or not, and the offense is ultimately the same that it is, I am for giving him a new offense. But if you're in a position, like what you said, Daniel, if you're in a position where you're going to have a high pick, and it's hard for me to get behind just knowing what this team does. But right. if their defense plays bad, they're 1-22 their last 23 games. If their defense gives up over 20 points, they're 1-22. And that's awful. That's god awful. Yeah, I saw that statistic today. That's terrible. So if the offense is the same and you're still averaging, let's say they average 16 points a game this year, and it's just not cutting it, blah, blah, blah. They finish with, let's say, within the top 12. I think it's something you can have a conversation about, just because I think it's a pretty good draft class this year. I'm not going to sit here and say every single quarterback coming out is going to be a home run. You honestly can't sit and say that. I don't care what scouts say. Other than Caleb Williams, I think it's very skeptical on who's going to pan out and who's not. But it still is a good class. There's still upside for stuff like that. It's worth a conversation, but I am all for giving him a new offense to work with, at least for a year. And if it doesn't pan out, then you move on. And that's the good thing, is that the team has talent. And I think they have some talent now that helps them long term and everything. But you also don't want to waste guys. You don't want to waste what you have. And I think it's fair to give a year a shot if you feel comfortable about that and giving him a new offense to work with. And then that's the thing. If it's just nothing there and he is what he is, then you can move on. He's on a rookie contract. You can move on. Mm-hmm. So I think it's worth a conversation if that comes, if it's the same status quo, if Kenny's not doing anything much better. But I'm also for if they're like, hey, yep, Kenny's our quarterback for 2024. We're bringing a new play caller. We have a new offense set up for him. Then, okay, let's see what happens. But if it's like, okay, this is just who he is, then you just move on. That's where I'm at with it. That's how I feel about the situation.
Right. See, for me, I think this week it's going to be telling. But questions are going to rise up, right? So let's just say the Steelers and Mr. Trubisky go in and, Baltimore comes in to Acrisure and the offense looks better. The question is going to be, was the play caller switched, or was it the quarterback that had more ability to read certain defenses and could perform at a higher IQ level of a college? Right. I mean, of a play, right? And so I think that's going to be a huge question that's going to come up, because I think that the Steelers might open it up a little bit. And I think people are going to say one or the other. Which one do you think it's going to be? I personally think that it's probably going to be, I think because Minshew is a veteran quarterback. He's been there for a while. He's got experience. I think they're going to open up the playbook a little bit more. It's not going to be the same old plays. What are your thoughts?
For this Sunday, if Mitch starts?
Yeah, I think I know that they're giving Kenny a chance. He ended up only having a bone bruise.
Yeah, that's honestly what I felt like it was going to be.
Yeah, and so they're giving him a chance.
Here's what I'm going to say, Dan. You remember when Mitch came in that Tampa Bay game last year and we won, and he looked like a whole new quarterback?
Yeah, I was there.
You were there that game. Okay, so you saw it with your own eyes. I could see it being similar because Mitch knows he's got nothing to lose. Mitch has nothing to lose. He's probably going to get another opportunity, at least I know he signed that extension with the Steelers this offseason, but it's going to be to a point where he's going to get another opportunity. But I think that we're going to see a little bit of something different. Not saying who's going to be calling the plays. God, I mean, I would love it if something would come out where Canada's been dismissed or somebody's taking duties. I mean, I think we all would love to see that. It's not going to change the whole thing. And we'll get in that conversation in a second. But if Mitch plays, you might feel a little bit of freshness just because Mitch is more polished. Mitch has actually won a division. Mitch has did some good things in Chicago. He's just really kind of high end backup, but you might see some new stuff. It might feel a little more fresh. Who knows? Mitch could still throw 3 interceptions like he did last year against the Ravens. Who ultimately knows? But I think if Mitch plays more freely, I think we might see something that at least could maybe give some kind of spark for the game. What
if Mitch goes 3? He has 3 touchdowns, 330 yards. You think? What do you think's gonna happen there?
Yeah, man, Mitch just cooks the Ravens or something.
It just blows them out.
I think you'd be hearing a lot of fans saying to stick with him at least for after the bye week, maybe a week after the bye week. I don't know. The Steelers could have an opt out too, like we're just gonna give Kenny a little bit of rest, or something like that. And then if Mitch stinks to join, you put Kenny back in. I don't know. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, they can always blame the bruise.
You could do that. You could do that. Real quick, Charles, what's up, man? Appreciate tuning in. Haven't really seen you in here much. What's up? Caleb Williams would be a great quarterback for Steelers. He'd be a great quarterback for any team that picks him, but he's going to go number 1 overall. The Steelers are not going to have the first overall pick in the draft. And Najee is running back 3. Absolutely not. Najee was their best player on Sunday, and not Najee. Najee has carried this offense the last 2 years. So completely disagree on that, but appreciate you tuning in, man. I mean, I think everybody would love to have Caleb Williams as their quarterback, and Appreciate your insight and your thoughts out there.
Caleb Williams is number one as of today, but that can always change. I mean,
Yeah,
Justin
but
Fields was supposed to be this.
he's good though, man. Like he's somebody I think could be a special talent. So, but
Did
with
you
with the
see?
quarter
Did
with
you
the quarterback,
see?
I'm not making any assumption. Yeah,
Did you see C.J. Stroud being what he is so far?
not this early, no. But I still liked him though. I still liked him. I
Mhm.
still thought that he had some good potential. Him and Bryce Young, I thought, and Bryce Young still can. Like the Panthers have just been, they're just struggling. But CJ Stroud, I don't think anybody expected him to be as good as he is right away. But I had high hopes for him. And I was like, I think that the Texans will honestly be pretty happy they moved off Deshaun and took him.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, 100%,
but kudos to him, man. I mean, he's lighting it up. But in terms of the Matt Canada stuff, if they move off him, whether that's this upcoming week after the bye week, or even if they don't quite fire him, because the Steelers don't do that, but let's say that they give the play calling to somebody else, right? Maybe Canada's just there as like an assistant or somebody to work with the quarterbacks, however they want to put it. I don't care. Regardless, if Matt Canada is off the, let's say he's in a major step back, okay, from his current role.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody should expect the offense to completely shift gears. And I said going into this year, guys, everybody in the chat, I said going into this year, I did not think the offense would still be where it needs to be this year, but I thought it would have been a tad better than it was last year. So it's as bad as it's going to get. It's as bad as you can possibly get right now.
It's gone backwards, man.
It's gone completely backwards. So, with that being said, I'm all for moving off him mid-season. I know it's not going to change the dynamics completely, but I think if maybe you let somebody like what's his name, Jackson Glenn, that they brought in as a passing coordinator.
Oh,
isn't that who that is?
Glenn Thomas.
Glenn Thomas. I don't know where I got Jackson Glenn from. I feel like
he's one of the Jackson Fives.
Yeah, the Jackson Five. So anyway, you got Michael Jackson in there, dude. You got freaking Mike Sullivan in there, right? It's not going to change the dynamics much. We know that. Like the offense would not be overhauled like that, and players learning new things. But I think maybe some of these guys can maybe give some fresh concepts. Maybe there can be a breath of fresh air. I don't know how the players are feeling about Matt Canada. Maybe it might be something. Maybe okay, might have something new here, right? It might be that leech off the back, and it might be able to bring a sense of maybe just some newness, maybe a little bit of a spark. I don't know. It could be completely the same, but I think it's worth a try. I think it's worth a try, worth a shot to get whoever you want to. If you're the Steelers, Jackson, freaking Mike Sullivan, who they brought in a couple years ago, it's worth a shot to see what they can bring to the table, what ideas they can throw out there in their meetings. Might be able to draw up some new stuff in a way, but still keep it kind of familiar with what the players are familiar with. And then you make your move next year with whoever you want to bring in. I'm all for that. I think everybody should have the expectation if they move off Canada or they let somebody else have more control, it's not going to change a ton, but it might be able to bring a spark. It might be able to bring some confidence into the offense that the players, like kind of what you said earlier, Daniel, that they just might not just be bought in anymore, like it might just be, done. And you might just have to bring somebody else in that might be able to give a fresh slate of ideas. And I'm all for that. And I think if that's the case, I think anybody would take that at this point, because I said this before. I like what the team has. I really do. And I said, if the offense, if that's the route you go and you let these guys start to breathe a little bit, maybe a spark here. If the just a little bit of a step forward, like you're right here, right? Maybe if you do something like that, maybe it might bring these guys a little bit up to here. You're not going to go up to here, but it might bring you a little bit up to here. And I think it can keep the team relevant. I think it can keep the team competitive if you can get guys bought in on something else and maybe just throw up some new ideas. Something new that maybe these guys are seeing that Matt Canada's not seeing, that these guys have been around in other organizations, and maybe try to implement something in the interim until they make a different decision. I'm all for that. And I think if that can be the case, that something can be rejuvenated with our offense, I think that we can have some success, and I think we can stay a competitive team. But at the end of the day, we all know that with where we're at right now, it's not good. And that's kind of really, I'm not even saying that's best case scenario right now, but I'm just throwing that out there as a realistic type option, maybe that they might go and do.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that's the
Right.
case. I think anybody would take that at this point. I really do. And I think everybody in the chat would take that. George Pickens has a
for me,
concept,
though,
put it in the sky. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for me though, when it comes to the possibility of another quarterback, I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. You're well aware. Last year,
Yep.
about halfway through, I was already done with him.
Yeah.
Right
yeah,
before they went on that 7-2 and 7-2 run. I was I wasn't seeing any improvement. I was seeing happy feet. I was seeing guy lead clean pockets, a lot of the same stuff. And what I saw was improvement throughout the year. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he drank too much of his own Kool-Aid and preseason, and then he got hit in the mouth and just hasn't recovered since then, from the 49ers.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, I don't know, and he's not doing well. And it's not just the scheme, and it's not just the play calls or whatever. Even that 4th and 1, was it a stupid play call to do a 5-step back and shotgun and throw the ball when it's 4th and 1, and you've been running the ball well? Hell yeah, that's not a smart decision. But 3 rivers were open on that play. So he makes the throw to Connor Hayward, who he was looking at, who's wide open. Last week against the Vegas Raiders, there was a similar play where you had George Pickens go up 2 yards and then slant in. I think I sent you a picture of it, and I asked you, where do you think the ball goes here? Because Kenny Pickett's looking at him. He has his hand ready, looks like he's about to throw, and you have a wide open George Pickens running to a wide open area. And he double clutches, turns around, runs, and then throws it to Calvin Austin on the side for an incomplete pass, who was also open. It just went way too far above his head.
Right.
When I've gone to the games, when I went to this game, I can say that there was a little bit of felt like the Houston's quarterback, C.J. Stroud, was better. I felt that way against the 49ers, and watching the 49ers and the Steelers play that. Purdy was just a step above. There's this level, and then there's the next level. And I felt that Pickett was below that. And I think that if you're in position to get somebody that could be that has the ability to make off-platform throws, who can throw very quick and the ball travel on a rope still. Because if Kenny Pickett doesn't have his full windup, the ball is it dies on him. And, he might be stronger than what Duck was, but at the end of the day, because of Duck's inability or lack of arm strength, defenses figured him out and what he had to do, and he was Dunsky's. And I'm not saying that Kenny Pickett is that, his strength is there, but it's not much higher than his.
Yeah.
And it's, if I think that the Steelers have an opportunity to get a guy that they think could be, a special guy, I would want him to pull the trigger, after 2 years.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he's played a full season, at this point. And the stats don't lie. The eye in the sky don't lie. It's just not been good. It's not been good. And I want him to turn it around. I freaking have a Kenny Pickett freaking jersey there. I'm wearing a Mason Rudolph jersey right now because I'm so pissed off at the quarterback play.
That's the way you take it out, man.
That I do, man. I get pissed off. I wear the third string quarterback's jersey.
Put it on.
I don't have faith in Mitch Trubisky either. I'll be honest with you. So
I don't really think too many people do. I think if he can just do enough on Sunday, because look, at the end of the day, I've seen a couple people here in the chat say that they don't think it's going to be good on Sunday and the Ravens are going to blow us out. I don't think that's going to be the case, man. No matter who plays in these Steelers and Ravens games, they're always a 3-point game. It doesn't even matter who plays. You could have Tyler Huntley in there at quarterback for them, and it's a 3-point game. I think Mitch has a chance to help us win the game, just in the sense if our defense shows up and it's a typical Steelers-Ravens game. I think even if he can just do enough, maybe use his legs a little bit, maybe just be able to make some good throws, I think it might be able to. They might have a shot, but at that point too, like it's just hard to get behind. But yeah, dude, I hear you on the quarterback stuff. Like he's kind of had he's had a full 17 game slate, and but I'm still for him getting a shot with a new offense, and if it's just not good, you move on. But I think just more of the stuff for him is just more stuff he can get better at and that he can control. But I mean, we just have to see it, and it's just how long do you give it is really the ultimate question. Like I never thought, I've told other people when we drafted him, I never thought he was going to be a top tier quarterback. And I don't really think too many people did, but I think a lot of people thought, and I still do think that he has some abilities that could make him to be a guy that's, maybe an above average quarterback or something like that. Nothing special, but an above average quarterback. But that's still kind of to be seen because there's still some things he does that I'm like, okay, that was pretty good. That was pretty nice, right? He had a nice throw on third and forever to George Pickens where it was 4th and 1, and then they ran that stupid ass play. He had a nice pass to George Pickens in the end zone. That was a nice play by the DB. But that's a thing though that we've seen. It's like there's certain flashes in the quarters and stuff, but it's not put together, and it's just how long can you go with that, right? So
but doesn't that sound like Mason Rudolph's year? Yeah, there's flashes. He does good. Every now and then he'll throw a deep pass, and if you look at the stats, Mason Rudolph beats him in most of them. Touchdown interception ratio, touchdowns, yards per game, yards per pass. And, he had Randy Fichtner as an offensive coordinator. It wasn't much better than Matt Canada. He had an injury. Juju Smith-Schuster was hurt that year. He had a rookie Deontay Johnson as his receiver. James Conner was in and out that year with injuries as well. And, I think he may have had a slightly better line, but that might just be an appearance thing because Kenny Pickett runs away on this line. If he would stick into the pocket a little bit more or, had a little bit better pocket presence, I think this offensive line wouldn't look as bad as it does as far as pass protection. Running that's all on Matt Canada. The reason why this team can't run worth the crap is because it's too obvious when they're going to run, right? It's way too damn obvious and everyone's crashing in. So that's the reason why the running game ain't working. Now, the passing game and the pass blocking, it is working to a certain extent. And so when you look at Mason Rudolph's stats compared to Kenny Pickett's, Kenny's basically Mason Rudolph 2.0. And, some of the same problems, happy feet, inaccurate throws, throwing short. I mean, these were all things that everybody was saying about Mason Rudolph 5-6 games in. I just don't understand why everybody needs to see more of this from Kenny Pickett. You get what I'm saying?
I think it's more so because Kenny was a first round pick. I think it's more so because Kenny had more success in college than Mason Rudolph did. And Mason Rudolph went in the 3rd round. And the thing with him was, you're completely right on the numbers. You're completely right on the things Rudolph did when he was kind of back and forth as a starter versus what Kenny's doing. But I really think that's it. I think it's more so for the fans, for the organization of we invested in our 1st round pick in this guy, and we're not going to give up quite yet on it. And Mason, they went in the 3rd round. They liked some things. Okay. They took a shot. Didn't really quite pan out with this. This is what I think is going to happen, Daniel. Regardless of how this season goes, Kenny did have one good year, but I'm saying in college, what he did at Pitt is better than anything Mason Rudolph did at Oklahoma State. So I don't know what to tell you. But I think what's going to happen is not what I'm saying, what I would do. What I think is just going to happen, they're just going to wait and see, and they're going to give him another shot just because what they invested in him, and then they'll eventually move on if it doesn't work out. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah. Aquatic Life says, so is it more of a developmental problem? It could be. I mean, if we look at every quarterback that the Pittsburgh Steelers have drafted under Mike Tomlin, it's none of them have developed. And the Steelers have spent third rounders
Mm-hmm.
on some guys, fifth rounders on some guys. Going back to it, like Landry Jones. You had Mason Rudolph, Dobbs, Kenny, the guy that they drafted in the 7th round with Kenny, Oladokin. None of these guys have panned out. I mean, you go look at, like, for instance, Bill Belichick. He had Tom Brady for the longest time, but behind him he had Jimmy Garoppolo, who found his way into a Super Bowl. You had Brissett, who's a decent quarterback. He's not, he'd be the Trent Dilfer if his team ever made it to the quarter. That's what he would be compared to.
Yeah.
So
decent backup.
Yeah. So is it a developmental problem? It could be. Now it goes back Tomlin's tenure, not just, under Matt Canada. So, do you think that Tomlin has a problem either seeing talent in the quarterback position or developing talent in the quarterback position?
Could be a mix of both. I don't really think Tomlin's got a knack too much for offense. I really don't. I really don't. And I think, too, that's why we've seen guys come in offensively and it just hasn't worked out. There hasn't been stability offensively in terms of personnel, in terms of coaching. No, but, dude, you're missing the point. I'm not saying that Mason was more consistent. Mason had more consistent years, but Kenny's breakout year, his last year, was better than what Mason's put up. That's what I'm saying. So you don't have to agree with it. But I'm just saying what Kenny did in his last year at Pitt. Like, that's literally what I'm saying. So that's why the Steelers are going to stick with him, probably because they invested a 1st-round pick in him. So I don't know what else to tell you. But yeah, I think that's the case. I don't think he has too much of a knack for offense, man. I think that's why you need to go out of your realm and bring somebody in that does, and he has nothing to do with it. That's really what I think needs to do. Stick with your defense, stick with what you do, stick with your hands-on stuff defensively. But there's been things with quarterbacks too, man, where there's guys that have some underlying potential and there's just been really poor coaching and guys just were never able to recover from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a reality too.
I agree.
I think there's a lot of things that us as fans, people in the media, people that talk about this kind of stuff, you can put your thoughts into it. You can think of what probably is more reality versus not, but at the end of the day, you're not there. You're not in the meetings. You're not the coaches. You're not involved in what's going on. You don't know what's going on in these guys' minds. You don't know what's going on behind the closed doors, behind the scenes. And, but something's got to change. And, the fact that Tomlin came out and said that there's going to be change, he was really stern about it. The thing is, do we believe him? I don't. Every time he says there's really nothing. I don't think anybody really believes him. Like what? Nah. Like is this going to be the change where you have a couple guys who haven't really been getting too many snaps start to get snaps? Is that going to be the change?
They're going to let
like
Brad
what
Wing play
ultimate
more.
change is there going to be? The change that needs to happen from what you can do right now is giving somebody an opportunity, whoever in your offensive circle, an opportunity to give maybe some fresh ideas, to give a fresh insight, to have a little more control than what their role is. That's really all you can do right now.
Now, Renee says
I don't think so, just because Kenny's not going to be out long. So Renee says Kenny is a good quarterback. He had Mark Whipple as an OC at Pitt for 2 years. Whipple was the same coach that Ben had when he came into the league and developed him into a great QB. But didn't Ben also have Mike Sullivan as a quarterback coach? And that's Kenny's current quarterback coach, something like that for a while. I thought that was the case as well. I mean, sometimes either the quarterback has it or doesn't. And I'll say this, the talent level, the ability to play, everything across the board when it comes to Kenny Pickett and Ben Roethlisberger, there's no competition. There's yeah, for sure.
Ben's rookie year, like he came out and he just dominated right off the bat, and he made the NFL defense, he made it his own. He made them change it because of him, because they couldn't tackle him. They put him down. He could extend the plays. receivers were learning a new type of thing where, hey, we don't give up on plays anymore. We run around, and things were happening. Kenny doesn't have anything that's extraordinary. He doesn't have that ability to break tackles. Is he quick for a quarterback? Yeah, but he's not fast, right? He's not going to outrun, these edges that are in the NFL like he could in college. And, some of the problems that he had in college, though, were like his time to throw went at like 3.7 seconds, and then he left, clean pockets, and, he had happy feet. So those things are still transitioning into the NFL. He's 25 years old. Like, I know it's a second year, but at a certain point, how are you going to teach him something new?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I get people's frustrations and the thoughts of with him playing 5 years in college and being at this state, and there's ultimately nothing there that's showing you yet that he can be the person to lead the organization. I get it. I completely do. And that's why I think that they're going to do what they do this offseason. And if there's just nothing there, they'll move on.
Yeah,
I do think that. I really do. And I'm not a Pitt fan. I've never been somebody that wasn't somebody that advocated for them to draft any quarterback. Last year, I was like, whatever they do, they do. I hope they do well. We'll give them a shot, give it a little bit of time. They can move on if they need to. It's simple as that. You can either be somebody that still believes in Kenny, that still likes things about him. You can be somebody that wants to move on right now and think he should be benched or to draft somebody else next year. Wherever your stance is, that's your current stance, whatever the case is. But I think there's a lot more problems than just him. And if you're able to try your best to resolve that and he's still an issue, then you move on. It's simple as that. It really is. Because I think any young quarterback, your current offensive system right now, you put any year one or year two quarterback in this, they're not succeeding. They're not. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah.
I think that
I think that's just the reality.
But I do think that if you put a good quarterback in this system, you would see at least.
Well, heck, I mean, you could put any of those guys in anywhere, but those are quarterbacks that can still overcome bad coaching. Mm-hmm. We don't have that. That's why I'm saying specifically year one or year two quarterbacks, they will not succeed in the current offensive system. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you. It's a poor system. But...
Yeah. No, it really is. And but you see other teams in the league that have moved into more of an offensive mindset, that have brought in new coaching than what they currently had, and they have young quarterbacks and they're still able to produce. Josh Dobbs, prime example. Jordan Love, prime example.
Yeah, 100%.
Like it's just how it is. I mean, you can look at CJ Stroud. Texans went in a complete different direction, got some new coaching in there, took their quarterback. Granted, CJ Stroud's was a better prospect than Kenny was, but still. Bryce Young was the first overall pick. He's struggling right now as well, but we'll see if it comes around or not. But there's some quarterbacks in the league. Yeah, gotta wait and see. I guess
he's too small. I just don't see.
He is a small quarterback. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
I but think there's things happening around the league that other teams are doing and going with way NFL offense is going, and it's paying off for some of them.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Now, that doesn't mean that their specific quarterback, like who knows how good Jordan Love will be? Who knows how good some of these guys from this year, or you could even look at a Sam Howell, right? Look at Sam Howell, 3rd round pick, doing pretty well in Washington. They get a new offensive play caller, right? And you're getting some good results that I think that you'll take it any day, right? Yeah. So that's just, when you look at that, I think that tells itself. Now, that doesn't mean that all these quarterbacks are going to turn out, but with the way the NFL is, and you bring some new offensive minds into your circle, you're seeing success. And it's at least for a young quarterback that you have, year one, year two, it's at least you're on the trajectory you want it to be on.
Right.
So that's something the Steelers are not on. But I'm somebody where I'm not glued to Kenny. I'm not somebody who advocated for us to draft him, but I still want the guy to do well. I think every fan ultimately does. If you're somebody that doesn't like him just to not like him, you're an idiot and get off the freaking fan base. I think any quarterback that your team brings in, you want them to do well, right?
Yeah, of course.
But
I'm
I'm somebody who wants to see him progress. Will he? Who knows? But I'm okay if depending how this year goes and it's still kind of similar to last year or whatever. Okay, give him a new shot with someone else. If it doesn't work out, you move on.
Right, but the problem is this team has historically been at 500 or higher.
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't drop lower.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get in a position to get some prime, a real quarterback in that type of situation, like one that you can aim for, right? That you have, I guess, a little bit more faith is going to come out maybe with, a little bit more talent. We don't know about what they can do on the field yet because, rookies, you can never tell until they get on the field, right? But you can give yourself the best opportunities to get up there. And there's two ways to do it. Either trade a lot of stuff to get up there or play really bad. And
which they're not going to do. Either one.
Right. They're either one of those. So it's like we might be in for a while.
Well, but that's what it comes down to is you hope that Kenny gets better. You hope that maybe if they bring in some new coaching, it might help. If it doesn't, then you move on. But there'll be guys on the market too that you can always do. You got to wait till you get to that point.
Unfortunately, I think I wouldn't be surprised. But here's the thing. The Steelers went out and grabbed Mitch Trubisky, and he didn't turn out too well. And, I feel that if things go a certain way in the slate, the Steelers don't get a quarterback, they might find themselves with another Bears quarterback, and I don't know if that would be the best decision for the Steelers, so I don't know. We'll see what changes are being made, if any at all. I think Pat Fryermuth's going to be out for a little bit by the sound of it.
I will. The guy's made a paper.
Yeah. He's been hurt all. He's not been the tight end that we expected him to be this year. He's not been that great, but maybe this will give an opportunity to have his chest.
I don't think it's all on him either. I think they put him in bad situations too when it comes to blocking situations, man.
I don't know, my man. There was one where he literally laid down.
No, I know. That's what I said they put him in bad situations as a blocker, and he shouldn't be one.
Yeah. And so, but we're over the hour area. Do you have anything to plug in, Nathan? Your other two podcasts or your podcast that you have going
on? No, not really. Just my main channel's right here, guys. Do a show with my friend Z. It's not really quite as consistent. But we just kind of talk about sports or we talk about video games, different stuff like that. If you guys are into that. But yeah, your guys' support, always seeing you guys in the chat, putting your thoughts out there. We always appreciate it. We like you guys feeding off of us or when we feed off of you guys. At the end of the day, guys, we're all on the same team. That's what we're on. Yeah. We're all on the same team at the end of the day. We don't have to agree on every single thing. We don't have to agree on coaching. We don't have to agree on quarterback play. We don't have to agree on where the state of the team is, what direction they should go. Everybody has an opinion on it. But we're on the same team, and we want to see the team get better. We want to see things be made that need to be made and things get back on the right track. Still 4 games in. I think that there's a little bit of potential to try to do that. But stuff has to happen. Stuff they got to put their foot down. Enough's enough. And they have to do that because there's other teams that are, and it's starting to pay off, and the Steelers are just kind of stuck in their bubble, but they still have a shot, an opportunity. It's only 4 games still. They have some time where they can do stuff like that. The question is, will they? Probably not. And we're going to just be stuck in where we've kind of been at the last 3-4 years, and it is what it is. There's nothing anybody can do about it. So, but guys, we appreciate your support. We appreciate your guys' passion. We'll see what happens this Sunday. Daniel and I will try to maybe do a preview show if we can. If not, we'll be back next week. But at the end of the day, all we can do is just wait it out, see if anything changes, and go from there because it's out of our control. But we're on the same team, guys.
100%. And for me, I'll be putting out a film breakdown as soon as the All 22 drops tonight, and record it, see what I find, and put it out there. And you guys let me know what you think. With that being said, we're out of here.